The Oklahoma State University Homecoming Celebration brings together students, alumni, the Greek community, and the Stillwater community for 100 years.
For obvious reasons, the Homecoming Centennial Celebration has been postponed until 2021.
Welcome back to Pete's Corner. I'm Kelsey Briggs.
And I'm Emily Wickman. Homecoming is certainly one of Oklahoma's biggest traditions. It has a lot of history and is loved by all of those who participate in it. Son James has more on the history behind it and all of the festivities on America's Greatest Homecoming.
A tradition like no other, Oklahoma State University is known for America's Greatest Homecoming. It was first seen in 1913 and known as the Harvest Carnival, and then 7 years later, the Alumni Association hosted its first ever homecoming celebration in Stillwater. In the 20s, the now famous tradition of house decorations began when sororities started to decorate their doorways. In the 1930s, the very first homecoming parade that was only a mile long made its way down Main Street. That year, 17,000 alumni returned to Stillwater. In recent decades, events like the sign competition, football frenzy, and the chili cook-off were added. But with the COVID-19 pandemic, America's Greatest Homecoming looked a little different. One way that sororities and fraternities tried to keep the tradition alive this year was through many homecoming floats and decks. Meredith James, who has been involved with homecoming since her freshman year and was supposed to be homecoming director for Kappa Alpha Theta, says not having homecoming this year has had a significant impact on her time at OSU.
A hole that's missing because of the friendships and the bonds that everyone gets to make during homecoming. Like, obviously spending 24 hours bi-weekly in the pumping room isn't necessarily but some of my best friends in Theta and in the other houses that we've been paired with have been made in the pumping room.
One thing that didn't change about this homecoming was Cowboy football.
I'm really glad football happened this year. It's always my favorite part of homecoming, so I'm glad I got to see it for my senior year.
The Cowboys had an impressive showdown for this year's supposed homecoming game against the Texas Longhorns. A battle till overtime led the Longhorns to a 41-34 victory. One thing's for sure, although we had to push the 100th homecoming celebration a year off, next year will be one we won't forget. For Pete's Corner, I'm Sutton James.
The return of homecoming is something that everyone is looking forward to.
But with the long-awaited celebration a year away, Ellen Slater takes us through the experience our freshman class is facing.
There are a lot of remarkable firsts in a student's freshman year at OSU, one of the most iconic being America's Greatest Homecoming. And this year, that is something that freshman students will have to wait another year to get a feel of. Due to OSU making a lot of changes due to the ongoing pandemic and case numbers not getting better in Oklahoma, OSU's 100th homecoming celebration was canceled. Mary Gungle is a freshman mentor as she is a TA in a freshman seminar class and works with them daily. The event was of course canceled for safety reasons, but Gungle thinks that additionally it is probably good for the freshmen to not have to put the responsibilities of it, such as pumping hours, on their plate this fall.
Just with the pandemic going on and seeing the stresses that freshmen already have to deal with coming into college and just all the adjustments and changes that are being made, I think that ultimately it has worked out for the best. I think that just their schedules are crazy already, and they are already trying to adjust to college, but now they also have this pandemic that they're having to adjust to. So I've talked to them. I know they're excited for homecoming next year, but I do think it was the best decision for this fall.
The library's fountain was still dyed orange and things were still a little bit festive on campus, but things definitely weren't the same. Let's see what a freshman who's very involved on campus has to say about missing their first homecoming. I sat down with Riley Horcher.
Absolutely. You don't understand, the hype for next year, it's built up. She's there. I'm ready. I'm ready to pump. I'm ready to do everything. It's going to be, I will experience it at some point, but I'd rather keep building the hype and wait until it's safe than to do something and put people at risk,
As long as the freshmen stay loyal and true and the U.S. gets out of the pandemic, they will get to experience the 100th celebration of America's Greatest Homecoming next year. For Pete's Corner, I'm Ellen Slater.
Thank you so much for that, Ellen.
Now we're going to take a look at how homecoming has changed for on-campus students and those in residential life.
Many groups of people at OSU have been impacted by homecoming events being canceled, but perhaps none more than the students who live on campus. Residential life and the students living on campus usually have a lot to do for America's Greatest Homecoming. In past years, many of them have participated in the chili cook-off, all-night pomp, and the sign competition. With all of these events and so many other things canceled due to COVID-19, morale and spirits in the halls have been down compared to previous years. One community mentor from the South Commons talked about what she has seen so far from her residents following the cancellations.
Yeah, I definitely would say, like, in comparison to last year at least, like, mood is definitely different on the floor. Like, I don't see my residents as often, and that, like, I mean, that already makes my job hard. I think just in general, people are definitely weirded out and, like, upset. So it's kind of weird vibe,
Despite the challenges posed by COVID-19 and all of the events it has caused to cancel so far, the various residence halls still found ways to keep the students who live on campus engaged and active in their communities. The Director of Housing and Residential Life talked about some of the events they thought up here in the Res Life offices at Iba Hall and how they went about putting them on safely.
So we did encourage and try to create some opportunities for students to celebrate homecoming, realizing that OSU is known throughout the nation to have the country's largest homecoming. We wanted to try to provide some opportunities that would be safe. So there was pomping that took place. There was also, students were encouraged to do hall decorations. The title of the program was Join Us and Have a Wicked Good Time.
Although they, along with everyone else, still don't know when it will be, Dr. McClinton is ready to get the students back to interacting and having fun like is normal for a homecoming week, as long as it is once again safe to do so.
But we are so, more than ready to get back to some normalcy. But that could be a while.
Everyone is looking forward to hopefully having America's Greatest Homecoming return to Stillwater next fall. For Pete's Corner, I'm Tyler Blackburn.
Thank you, Tyler. With the OSU Alumni Association making the decision to cancel all homecoming activities,
students were left wondering how to continue in the spirit of OSU's most prized tradition. Now our own Emily Wickman has the story.
America's Greatest Homecoming was put to a halt after OSU's Alumni Association announced that homecoming activities will now happen during the 2021 school year due to the inability to monitor social distancing. For many students, getting to participate in traditions like Harvest Carnival, sign competitions, and walkarounds is something they look forward to during their fall semester. But after the postponement, students are struggling to stay positive during a week they anticipate putting their time in. Take it from Bryce Slagle, a junior at Oklahoma State who felt discouraged after his typically full schedule of helping his fraternity prepare for homecoming was wiped clean.
Honestly, it's been hard to stay focused because, it feels like with homecoming you have to get 10 hours a week of pomping done, you have to get all of these activities done, as well as school and everything else, and you have to just stay motivated and stay on top of everything. But with a lack of all of these activities, it feels like there's so much downtime that you can get sidetracked and things like that.
Picture this. The Friday night before the homecoming football game, hundreds and thousands of students, family, and alumni walk through Greek Row to see all of the decks that sororities and fraternities have created. Though the Cowboy family is used to seeing a street full with people, West University Avenue looked a little more like this during this year's homecoming. Students who work in on-campus organizations like Craig Anderson work closely with students and understand how difficult it is for them to maintain traditions without homecoming celebrations.
I think some of the challenges were trying to make sure people's morale kind of stayed up during this time. Generally, homecoming comes right after midterms and everything. So it's a good de-stressor, everything like that. So really the challenge of how do we keep people's mental health good with giving them options.
Until the Alumni Association announces a specific date for the 2021 homecoming celebration, students, families, and alumni will be eagerly waiting to see America's brightest orange fill the streets of campus again. For Pete's Corner, I'm Emily Wickman.
And that is something I'm looking forward to. Thank you, Emily. Oklahoma State homecoming is a vital part to the Greek community. Not only do these individuals spend countless nights, but months working on these beautiful decks.
But homecoming isn't just for students. It's a time for alumni to get involved with their alma mater. Reporter Maddie Millspaw takes a look into how the Alumni Association prepares for homecoming and how it changed this year.
Homecoming is one of the most important weeks here in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and not just for the students, but for alumni as well. It gives them a chance to come back to college for a weekend. No matter how long it's been since their graduation, being back in Polk territory can bring a smile to their face. But how has that changed with the pandemic going around?
Although I didn't get to go to a lot of alumni events for homecoming or anything, I did get to go to the football games, which was pretty awesome.
In a normal year, the Alumni Association puts together several events to keep the weekend packed full of fun. This year was supposed to be the biggest one of them all, as it was the centennial of Oklahoma State homecomings. However, due to COVID-19, the OSU Alumni Association was unable to host the 2020 homecoming.
Although homecoming did not go exactly as planned, the staff of the Alumni Association are working hard behind it.
The only events that were not affected by the COVID-19 pandemic were the football game and the painting of the fountain. All other aspects of the centennial homecoming celebration were postponed until fall of 2021. Next year is sure to be a fantastic homecoming to make up for lost time.
We firmly believe that if homecoming is going to happen, we want it to be in its entirety and give it the recognition and the magnitude that it deserves, because it's America's greatest for a reason.
Even with the pandemic going on, many alumni still had the opportunity to come home to Stillwater for the football game. This was still an exciting event and gave them something to look forward to for next year's homecoming festivities. For Pete's Corner, I'm Maddie Millspaw.
It's so unfortunate that the alumni had to miss out on so much this year.
Yes, it does, but I, for one, am looking forward to what the Alumni Association has planned for next year.
After homecoming was postponed, the sororities and fraternities were left without the memories that homecoming typically brings.
Kelsey Howsam takes an inside look at the Greek community and how their plans have changed due to postponement from homecoming.
From late nights spent inside the fraternity house pumping tissue, paper into chicken wire to spinning walk around with your sorority sisters, this year with COVID-19, homecoming has looked different.
I think it was definitely hard not to have homecoming because that's where you build your relationships. I think a big part of Greek life at OSU is homecoming and shows, and not being able to do that, it kind of didn't help break barriers where there were some with between chapters and getting to know everyone.
Hartley Best believes that homecoming is a representation of friendship in her chapter through working with other people and making connections.
You know, it was really hard for us in Farmhouse because as directors, we got so close, and we haven't really done a lot with Farmhouse, especially since I've been in college. But this was kind of our opportunity to mesh the two houses, and that was really heartbreaking for the girls especially, just because our biggest thing about homecoming is building those relationships.
Beth Keeney, the chapter president of Zeta Tau Alpha, mentions how homecoming is a big deal to the Greek community.
So I think homecoming means to Zeta what it means really to every Greek chapter. And like everyone at OSU, I think it's just a tradition that we value a lot at OSU. And I think there's a sense of pride in it because we call it America's Greatest Homecoming.
Shown next to me is the homecoming decks pumped in last year's homecoming. As you can tell, these decks had a lot of hard work and effort put into them, but what you can't see is the relationships that were formed and the pride that they felt when the decks were finished.
And there's so much work that our chapter and the whole Greek community puts into OSU and into OSU's homecoming. And so I think when you see the finished product, it's just a really great feeling and like a sense of pride for our chapter.
With America's Greatest Homecoming being postponed until next year due to COVID-19, the Greek community is understanding but excited for all the festives next year's homecoming will bring. For Pete's Corner, I'm Kelsey Howsam.
Thank you, Kelsey. Homecoming plays a big role at OSU in the Greek community, and we're so excited for the next time we get to celebrate America's Greatest Homecoming.
Now, the postponement doesn't just affect the Greek community, but it affects homecoming suppliers like Dupree's. Scarlett Gooch has the story.
So with Homecoming, we are the store that provides apparel for all the Greek houses, and last year when I was the manager of it, that was 26 houses total between 13 pairings. So between all of that, we do anything from their homecoming pullover, walk-around shirt, for the walk-around event on Friday nights, the game day shirt, frenzy jerseys, anything that they need to compete with their pairings for the homecoming process. And that's just apparel. Of course, there's things like hats, buttons, stickers, all the fun little PR stuff that they can do, but the biggest seller that we do with the Greek houses to get them prepared for homecoming is pomp. And as everybody at OSU knows, pomp is what builds the deck. It's those individual little squares of tissue paper, one by one, in each little chicken hole of this huge deck builds the masterpiece.
How does this small store make such a great impact on America's Greatest Homecoming?
Just feel like we're a part of the community and a big part of OSU. We almost feel like we're, maybe even partners with them, even though we're not. We're a separate retail entity. They do a lot of business down here and support us greatly, and we really appreciate that.
DePreez gets very involved with the Greek community.
We ask them basically if they'll buy t-shirts and sweatshirts and things through us. We'll sell them their pomps at cost, just because we know the pomps are a big cost to the fraternities and sororities, and they're basically doing it to, as a promotion and a marketing tool to help OSUs. Well, I hope it's bright. I hope everybody, they're kind of like caged animals almost. They missed it this year and they're just going to be ready to go out. And so I'm just hoping next year everybody's just raring to go and it'll be bigger and better than ever.
Thank you, Scarlett. But DePreez wasn't the only business in Stillwater to be affected.
That's right. Businesses like hotels and restaurants felt the significant impact. Reporter Clay Cottrell has the story.
In the past, Stillwater has been a tourism hub during Oklahoma State's annual homecoming. However, like many things in 2020, the Centennial Homecoming celebration had to be postponed due to the coronavirus pandemic. The week-long celebration, referred to as America's Greatest Homecoming, typically involves weeks of preparation from the university and local businesses. On a typical Friday night during homecoming, students, alumni, and others flood the streets for the walkarounds. They also flood local businesses. This year, however, Stillwater roads remained open. Local restaurants like Hideaway Pizza and Eskimo Joe's, which were both started by OSU alumni, suffered a major loss in business due to decrease in tourism. The Atherton, a university hotel, as well as other hotels in Stillwater, also suffered from the lack of business this past weekend. Although businesses did not thrive from this year's homecoming like they have in the past, the 100th homecoming celebration is scheduled for fall 2021. Reporting for Pete's Corner, I'm Clay Cottrell.
Thank you, Clay. Helping out local businesses is now more important than ever.
It truly is. When we come back, Nick Oldenburg has a story that is sure to warm your heart.
I want to show you something. This is the money we could save by switching from fresh packed California crushed tomatoes to concentrated tomato paste.
I want to show you something too. I got a new door. Go take a look at it.
Nobody uses better ingredients than Little Caesars. Like fresh-packed California crushed tomatoes. Pick up a large, deep dish for just $8.
Pizza. Hi, it's Sam at Louis Grill and Bar, here to introduce our new menu items from south of the border. Come try our new poblano chicken tacos, or the ever-popular sriracha shrimp tacos. At Louis, where you come for the food, but stay for the fun.
Welcome back to Pete's Corner. We promised you a story that would warm your heart. Nick Oldenburg has more.
Ever since 2013, Pete's Pet Posse has brought joy, relief, and many other positive emotions to OSU students. Normally, you can find a member of the posse roaming around the campus or in a large gathering of people. But, like most things in 2020, that has changed dramatically. Kendria Cost is the executive assistant to the First Lady here at Oklahoma State University. She is also the advisory board chair for Pete's Pet Posse. She says that a lot has changed for the organization this year.
COVID has not allowed us to attract crowds. So we have to be very careful about attracting a crowd when we are out on campus. Mm-hmm. Our locations where we typically are really did not want us to create a scenario for them that would increase traffic.
This is Scruff. He's a terrier mix that has been with Pete's Pet Posse since it began in 2013. He will still be traveling around OSU amidst this hectic year. If you want to meet him or any of his Pete's Pet Posse friends, they will still be having events. They will just be handled a little bit differently.
Now we have to do one at a time. They get 5 minutes each to pet the dog, and they have to wait in line. And we can't have more than, one person petting on the dog at any given time. So it kind of makes the dogs wish that more people would get around them.
The schedule for upcoming events is posted weekly on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Eggers said that even in this weird year, Pete's Pet Posse is vital to the students here at OSU.
We hand out business cards. I've had a student make a stuffed animal of my dog based on just a picture or something. We had coloring books, made up of the dogs, and it really, I think, is beneficial to students on campus.
If you wanted to meet any of these lovable guys this week, here is the upcoming schedule. For the Poke Report, I'm Nick Oldenburg.
Thanks, Nick. Now our own Kelsey Briggs is coming to us live from Alpha Gamma Rho Fraternity with a touching tribute.
And that's right, Emily. I'm here at the Alpha Gamma Rho Fraternity House, and to these men, homecoming is more than just a deck. Alpha Gamma Rho at Oklahoma State has been notorious for their impressive homecoming decks. They have won America's Greatest Homecoming for the past 5 years in a row. But people who have been upset with AGR's winning streak don't understand. It's not winning thereafter, but keeping 3 men's legacies alive.
It was in 1977, our house had an accident where 3 of our brothers passed away working on the homecoming deck. When they used to use scaffolding instead of lifts, the scaffolding actually tipped over and grounded out with the power line out front. And so naturally, the current grounded out through them and they passed.
It was October 14th, 1977, when brothers Randall Dwayne Logan, Merle Wayne George, and Kevin Brent Wilson lost their lives. Ever since the tragedy, members of the fraternity have worked tirelessly to keep their brothers' memories alive. Each year, on every deck built, a screen is dedicated to them. A moving part is also added every year to bring more attention to the memorial. With the cancellation of homecoming this year, AGR Homecoming Executive Director Ryan Glenn says they decided to immortalize the 3 men in a unique way.
Decided that 3 crosses was something simple, clean, but the best way to remember them and kind of the legacy that they have in this house.
AGR President Kobe Moore says this is not only a memorial, but a way to remind one another that each day with their brothers is special.
Trying to remember that any day could be a brother's last, and how we treat each other really does matter.
The crosses bearing the brothers' initiation numbers will remain standing until around Christmas. And the men of AGR will ensure that the brothers' legacies will live on. For Pete's Corner, I'm Kelsey Briggs. The postponing of America's Greatest Homecoming had its effects on everyone throughout Stillwater this year. But coming back next year, every cowboy and cowgirl cannot wait to see what the excitement brings.
That's all the time we have for you today. I'm Emily Wickman.
And I'm Kelsey Briggs. Have a great rest of your weekend. And as always, go Pokes!